YouTube, what's happening? It is Saturday, June 29th. There is a full slate of baseball to talk about today, but first, drop a like, subscribe if you haven't, because yesterday it was a green day overall. 7-3 plus 3.27 units, plus 3 for the last 7, 40 for the month, and 74 for the season. Only 3 got wrong. You can see in red. It could have been 9-3 if I didn't get scared and jump off of Philly. They won a 2-0 game. Wow. Either way, you can see the bets here. You can see we have a lot of games to talk about. So again, subscribe if you haven't, and let's go ahead and jump to that first one right now. All right, first up, we got Colorado and the White Sox. Rockies have lost 4 in a row. The White Sox are on a 2-game win streak. Look at that. I saw a stat. The White Sox have been favored 4 times this year. They're 4-0 in those games. How about that? Quantrill 6-5 with a 3-5 going up against Cannon 1-2 with a 4.59. Nerfy's highlighted up over here 62.4 based on what they've done. The Nerfy hit yesterday, super sweaty Nerfy, and the under hit yesterday. Looking at the odds, we see it's 8.5 and 9s across the board. That's about a pick 'em, but you can get some. It's a pick 'em. So popping over the batting, we can see the bats are still terrible. I mean, 2 runs a game, their last 3 for both teams. 143 batting for Colorado for 29th. Somebody's worse than that. Chicago 190 for 27th. Both teams are struggling. They're both striking out. Chicago just not as much as Colorado. So you can see both teams are struggling pretty hard. Let's see if the pitchers have anything to do about it. Today we have Quantrill going out there 3-5 with a 1-3 whip. You can see what he's done recently. The numbers aren't that bad. He has a couple gems against St. Louis and Minnesota. Has not faced the White Sox. 7 hits and 3 against the Dodgers. Washington was pretty hot last week. So these are good numbers. Let's be honest. And it's not in Colorado, which helps out a little bit. Cannon, on the other hand, got rocked in his last game against Detroit. Has not faced Colorado, but you can see pitched a 8.2, almost a complete game against Houston. Pretty good against Seattle. Good against Boston in 3 innings. You can see outside of, he is prone to some peaks and valleys. Let's put it that way. So to me, both these pitchers are pretty nice. We got the bats that are absolutely atrocious. So I think I'm going to go back and do what I did yesterday. I'm going to take the under, but we have 9s on the board today. So I get the under of 9. I'm going to take that. And I'm also going to take the Nerfy again in this one. Hopefully it's just not as sweaty as it was yesterday. So under 9, Nerfy next game. Next up, we got Cincinnati and St. Louis. St. Louis won a 1-0 game yesterday. You can see Spires 1-1 with a 3.45 up against Gray, who's 9-4 with a 2.81. Nerfy's in red. We'll look at it though. Depends on if we got a nice little matchup. Pop over the odds. We see St. Louis is pretty heavily favored at home. 8.5 is the total across the board. Looking at the bats, we see that the first thing I notice is the trend lines are both diving into the ground. That's not good. And especially when you have a 1-0 game yesterday, it's going to do that, obviously. But you can see Cincy only 4 runs in their last 3 for 17th. St. Louis 3 runs. So that's a slight advantage, Cincinnati. 240 batting versus 209 batting, both in the middle of the pack. 8 versus 5.3 in strikeouts. So we have 2 teams that are middle of the road bats, but they are both trending downward, which is something I like to look at. Looking at the pitching, we see Carson Spires is going out there with a 3.45 to 1.24. You can see he has not faced St. Louis, but he only pitched 3 innings back in May every time, but now he's up to 5 and not even 6. He's not bad. 4.3, decent numbers. Let's be honest here. Look at Gray, his counterpart, 2.81 with a 0.95. Has not faced Cincy either. You can see Gem against San Fran. His worst game is right here for 4 runs. Just like yesterday, I was saying multiple times, if your worst game is 4 runs, I will take that because you're not going to be on your A game every day. So, but if you can constantly throw out 1 hit over 7, I will take that. That's good numbers right there. So to me, what I'm seeing is we have an advantage for St. Louis in pitching, albeit slight. It's not a massive advantage, but Gray is a pretty good pitcher. We have the bats are pretty across the board, and the odds, St. Louis is a pretty heavy favorite. I don't know if I could rock with that, but I could rock with an under of 8.5, mainly because of how downtrending they are. And the pitchings are, both pitchers look pretty good, especially Gray. So I'm going to take the under 8.5 in this one. We're not going to take a side, and we'll move on to the next. Next up, we got the Yankees in Toronto. Yankees 1-1, Toronto lost 1. Yankees had an offensive explosion yesterday. I think it was 16 runs. Today they have Cortez 4-6 at a 3-4, going up against Bassett 6-6 at a 3-4-5. Murphy 53.3. And then we'll look at see how that's going. Looking at the odds, we see the Yankees are slightly favored on the road today. 8.5 across the board for the totals out there. Looking at the bats, the Yankees trend line took off like a rocket. It happens when all of a sudden you put up 16 in a game. So 16-5 final score. Runs a game in the last three, heavily influenced by this game. There will be some outliers in the data. So it's a 3-game sample. So what can you do? 6.7, but hey, when you break out, you break out. So hopefully this trend keeps up. 6.7 for fifth, meanwhile 7.7 for third. So Toronto still got more runs a game in the last three than New York. So 260 versus 302. Advantage Toronto. You can see the last game. Yankees batted 419 yesterday. Toronto batted 286. Still pretty good, but not Yankee good yesterday. 9 versus 9.7 strikeouts. So I guess we could say that the bats are both hot, especially in Toronto case because they have a trend of them being hot. Yankees had a massive breakout, so we'll see how that works. Looking at the pitchers, we see Cortez is going out there 3.4, the 107. Has not faced Toronto recently. You can see he's been a little up and down, and he's given up some runs. He's only had like one real gem in the last 6 games where it was Baltimore, so that's pretty. Baltimore's not bad. It's actually kind of impressive, but he looks like he's going to give up about 2 to 3 runs a game. So that's what we can expect out of him. Bassett, you can see for him, has better numbers in my opinion. Hasn't faced the Yankees though, but he faced Boston his last 2 times and only gave up 2 runs each. So in my opinion, I think Bassett might be the better statistically. In the past 6 games, let me preface these statements. Bassett's the better pitcher. Just because look at the screen. The numbers on the screen look better, and how many games in a row do you need to see who's a better pitcher? I say Bassett's better, but albeit by a slim margin. The bats are both hot. The odds are 8, 8.5. With the way the pitchers are both doing pretty good, I don't see many runs being scored, but then again, I can't go against this offense because of this. So for me, I can't decide if this is going to be like a 3-2 game or if it's going to be another blowout of like 10-12. So to me, I'm going to sit back, I'm going to pass and move on to the next game. All right, next up, we got Miami and Philly. Yesterday, Philly won 2-0. If I didn't get scared off it, I would have had 2 more wins because I had the money line and -1.5. But I did the smart thing. There was a lot of caution in the comments saying, hey, you might not want to do this. So I said, you know what? You got in my head. You got me. So, hey, whatever. I didn't lose. That's the main thing. So we'll take it. Miami, they've lost 1. Philly, they won 1. 2.7 runs a game for Miami in the last 3. Philly, 4 runs in their last 3 for fourth. You can see both trend lines. Miami's really going down. Philly's slightly going down, but half of Philly's stars are on the injury list right now. So it kind of makes sense. 214 for Miami. 276 for Philly. Again, the stats are factoring in the stars being there. They batted 250 yesterday, though, which is not bad, albeit with your stars being out. 8 strikeouts versus 8. There's no advantage there. So to me, Philly's stats look better. Miami is bottom 3, bottom 4 in the majors, but I think Philly is obviously going to be hampered by not having the stars there. Looking at the pitching matchups to see if we have anything stands out here. Has not faced Philly. He is 5.8, 1.4. Not the best numbers. You can see he gives up some runs. Most of his starts, he's given up at least 4 runs. So, and it's all been recently too. So that's not good. So Munoz might be giving up 4 at least. We take into account the reduced Philly offense, probably at least 3 runs, I'm thinking. Looking at his counterpart, Nola, 3.39 with a 105. Nola gives up probably 2 to average outside of the one game where Boston just took him out back and just, punished him. So it's, to me, it's 8.5 with some juice on the over in this one. With these 2 offenses, which Philly, you have to almost drop a few points on the rankings just because of how their stars are out. And Miami is just terrible right now. Let's be honest, they're not good. So with the pitchers being the way they are, the odds are, I'm not taking 250 Philly in anything again. I'm not doing it. Now, when the stars come back, that's a different story. So for me, I'm not going to touch this game because there's too many unknowns. We don't know who's really going to step up in the absence of the stars. And Miami is just not looking good. So I'm just going to pass on this game completely and move on to the next one. Next up, we got Pittsburgh and Atlanta. We got Paul Skeens against Max Fried. 4.0, 2.14 versus 7.3 with a 3 ERA. To me, probably the pitching matchup of the day. Nerfy is red, but I don't care. With these 2 pitchers, I'm going to look at a Nerfy. But first, look at the odds, and we see that Atlanta is a pretty decent favorite at home. Does Vegas not know Paul Skeens is pitching? I mean, come on. That's what everybody will tell you, though. So a lot of people will be on Pittsburgh money line, maybe myself. Let's look at the bets. We see Pittsburgh, they're 5.3 in their last three, even though they only got one yesterday for eighth best. Atlanta, 2.3 runs in their last three for 26. So even though they only got 6 runs yesterday, or they got 6 runs yesterday, they're still not that great. They're still pretty cold. This might be a slight breakout. We'll see what today brings. Against Paul Skeens, you're going to have to earn that breakout. 248 versus 202. That's 13th and 24th in batting average. And you see the strikeouts, 10 versus 8.7. Let's look at the pitchers. Mr. Skeens, 214 with a .99. You can see has not faced Atlanta. Has been pretty good overall. The main thing I always look at for him is his K props, 8, 7, 8, 8. It was 7.5 last week. I took it, hit the over. It was great. I don't know if I'm going to take it today. Let's be honest. I need to see if I can, based on the way Atlanta's bats are still, they're pretty cold. I mean, they had one game that might not be a breakout, but based on his K props, if I can get a 6.5 out there somewhere, I'll take it. I'll take that. But anything else, I'm going to lay off. A 7.5? No, can't do it. I mean, the Braves are cold, but they're still the Braves. They have the talents out there. So not doing that. I'm not risking that much. We're not trying to gamble. We're trying to be smart here. So overall, let's look at his counterpart. Fried over here, 3 with a 107. Has not faced Pittsburgh. But you can see outside of his Baltimore game with 4, that was his worst game. Still pretty good numbers overall. So we have 2 pretty good pitchers. Let's be honest here. Look at the odds, 7.5. That's too low of a total to worry about. The question is the money line. What are we going to do here? Do we take Pittsburgh and back Paul Skeens and plus money, which a lot of people will be doing, is going to be a very popular bet today, and I think for a reason. Do we think Pittsburgh's going cold and we think Atlanta is breaking out, or do we trust Fried and Atlanta to take over? To me, this one's a rough one. This is hard. I mean, to me, I want to play this one just because of the game, but that's not what we do here. We're smart. If we don't have a good feel, we lay off. In this one, I'm not getting a good feel. People are going to be on Pittsburgh money line. I think there's a reason why Atlanta's disfavored. To me, I'm getting scared. I'm gonna lay off. I'm gonna pass on it. Next game. All right, next we got San Diego and Boston. But before we do, I just pulled up the props. I am seeing Skeens at 7.5, so I'm going to lay off that. So that last game is completely off limits. Just going to sit back and watch. So anyways, moving on to this one. San Diego and Boston. San Diego's 1-4. Boston lost 2. King 5-5 with a 3.75. Hawk Tua 3-5 with a 2.18. I'm sure that joke's been made 1,000 times with this dude. I'm sure he's tired of hearing it. 41.6 Nervy. Looking at the odds, we see Boston is a pretty decent favorite at home. 9, 8.5 across the board for the totals. Bats, we see that San Diego their offense is doing pretty good. They're single digits in almost every category. 8.7 in their last 3 games for second in the majors, batting 291. They're 7th. It's pretty good. Boston, 4.3 for 13th, 233 for 18th. They're middle of the road. Not that bad, honestly, but San Diego's pretty hot right now. Meanwhile, strikeouts, 5.3 versus 6.7. San Diego's always in the top 5 when it comes to strikeouts because they're a very disciplined team overall. Looking at the pitching, King, 3.75 at a 1.29. You can see has not faced Boston recently, but his last game was rough. Gave up 5 to Milwaukee. Milwaukee has a trend of doing this to teams. You can look through the history of every pitcher that starts, and you'll see Milwaukee roughing up somebody more often than not, especially in the month of June. It's been kind of wild. 6-1, 4-2, 5-0, 4-1. These are good numbers. These are not bad numbers at all. This is the only bad one. So you think this is a one-off and he bounces back, then you expect probably 1 to 2 runs given up. Looking at Hawk over here, 2.18 with a .97. You can see he's going to be good for 2 to 3 runs. So right there alone, just on that, we have already an advantage for San Diego in pitching. We have an advantage for San Diego in batting. We have the odds as Boston as an underdog. So, I mean, San Diego as an underdog. So what we're going to do here is based on the fact that we have the advantage San Diego. We have the advantage in pitching in my mind because King, I believe that's a one-off. I don't think he's going to do that again. I think, yeah, I'm taking San Diego plus money on the money line, and we'll move on to the next game. All right, next up, we got Cleveland and Kansas City. Cleveland's lost 3, Casey's won 3. Bybee 6-2 with a 3-5 up against Reagan's 5-5 with a 3-1-2. Nerfy 49.8, not worth looking at probably. We'll look a little closer though. Looking at the odds, we see that KC is either a pick-em or some books, they're a slight favorite. So it depends on where you look. Totals are 8s with a 1.7.5 out there. And looking at the bats, we see KC has the advantage. Their trend line is what you want to see. Consistent uphill. Cleveland is going down. That's the same thing as yesterday. KC won 10-3. I said yesterday, I don't want to bet on teams that are trending down. Cleveland was that trend I said it for. And you can see they lost the game. Should have bet the game. What was I thinking? So I'm too cautious sometimes. That's my downfall. Sometimes I'm too conservative when it comes to these bets. So overall, we see that 2 runs a game for 27th in the last 3 for Cleveland. They're struggling a little bit. They're only batting .213 for 20th. KC 5.7 with .312 average. You can see the strikeouts. KC's better in all categories offensively. Looking at the pitching, Reagan's is going 303 to 115. Has not faced Cleveland recently, but you can see his stats are pretty good. He's probably one of the pitchers you don't hear much about because he's not one of the stars they're always hyping up, but they might want to talk a little bit about him because 3 is his worst game in the past 7 starts, and he just puts out gems. This dude is the definition of a quality start in baseball because this is what you want in a guy to come out here and do. If this is your worst game, sign me up. Looking at his counterpart, Bybee has also been pretty good. 4 is his worst game I see. He has 6-2, a 3-0. He has faced KC. Gave up 6 hits, 2 earned, over 7 strikeouts. And dude's a strikeout machine. If you want to take K-Pross, by all means, enjoy, have fun. But when KC is only striking out 6.7 times a game in the last 3, I'm going to pass on that. So, but you can see the stats here. To me, both pitchers are pretty good. We can't complain. Both numbers are great. I would say Reagan's numbers are, minuscule, slightly better. And the odd bats being where they are, Casey has the advantage swinging the bat. The pitching matchup is virtually equal. The odds being where they are. To me, you can go. I'm probably going to go with KC moneyline just because of how hot the bats are. I like to ride trends. The trend is pointing up. So that's what we'll do. We will take KC moneyline since I can get a bunch of pick'ems out here. Pick'em KC moneyline next game. Next up, Chicago and Milwaukee. Cubs lost 1. Milwaukee's won 5 in a row now. Steele 0-3 with a 3.36 up against Myers. 5-2 with a 3.12 record. Nerfy is highlighted. We'll look at it, but we'll maybe not. 64.2 is what they've done over the course of the year based on their whole year stats and the probability of them doing it again. Odds we see it's about a pick'em or Milwaukee favorite, depends on where you look. You have options. Total 9, 8.5s are both out there to choose from. The bats we can see are kind of close. Cubs 3.3 for 22nd, Milwaukee 4.3 for 13th, 238 and 240. That's the same for batting average. So there's no real advantage here. Slight advantage for Milwaukee. They're able to score more runs because they're able to get 1 extra dude across the plate. But to me, both offenses are pretty much the same. Only thing is really standing out is Chicago is striking out a lot. It's 11.3 over the last 3 for 28, including 13 yesterday. That's a lot of strikeouts. So you might want to look at Byers' strikeout props. Looking at the pitchers, let's do that now. See how he does. Is he a strikeout dude? 3, 6, 4, 5, 4, 4. Yeah, not really. So if you want to look at it, by all means, enjoy. But I'm not. Looking at his stats, he has not faced the Cubbies. You can see, though, dude's put outside of his 1 Chicago White Sox game. He has been pretty on point. These are good numbers for a dude. So he had a 1-off, and then he has given up 2 total earned runs and 13 total hits in the entire month in 4 starts. And they have won every game. Impressive run for this man right here. Steele, on the other hand, you can see he's 0-3 to 308 with a 106. He's prone to give up runs. Outside of, but if 2's your worst game in the last 6 games, that's not worth complaining about. Yeah, he gave a 5 back in Atlanta, but so they both have 1 game where they gave up 5 runs. Okay, they're both pretty good. I would take this pitcher too. Great numbers overall. In the Milwaukee, 3 hits, nothing, over 7. That's what you want to see. So we have 2 pitchers that are pitching pretty good. We have 2 offenses that are middle of the road. And we have a 9 out there. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to take the under of 9 today. We're not going to take a side. because there's no real advantage either side on pitching or this, but I believe that's the pitchers could shut down the offenses. They're starting to trend down a little bit. So we'll take the under, not touch the side, and move on to the next one. Next up, we got Houston and the Mets. Houston's lost one. The Grimace Mets have won 4. Valdez 6-5 at a 3.68. McGill 2-4 with a 4.54. Nerfy's in the red. Based on these pictures, I'll probably pass on it. Looking at the odds, we see that Houston is slightly favored on the road. 8.5s and 8s on the total side you could pick from. The bats are still pretty hot. Houston 4.7 in their last 3 for 12th. Mets 9.3 for first. That's almost off of what, 4.5 run differential. That's pretty big advantage. 305 batting versus 330, first and third. Houston just had a struggle with getting people home. If you're batting 305, you're going to score runs. That's just a fact. 6.3 and 4.3 on strikeouts. Looking at pitching, McGill's going out here 4.81 with a 1.43. You can see one certain trend about him. He likes to give up runs in the month of June. He hasn't faced Houston, though, but dude gives up runs. He's handing out runs like they used to at Costco on Saturday morning, giving out free samples. This is what this dude's doing. He's sampling runs to all the pitchers, all the teams. So that's what you get with him. Valdez, obviously better, 3.68, 1.20. His June, outside of his San Fran game, his June's been pretty good. Let's be honest here. He hasn't faced the Mets either. So, yeah, overall, I would say Valdez is clearly the better pitcher here. Going back to the bats, both bats are pretty hot. Looking at the odds, I see 8s on the board. I see Houston as a favorite. I'm going to take Houston in this one because I believe Valdez is the much better pitcher. Correction, I'm going to take that back because I just thought of this. The Mets are super on fire. He does have some runs he gives up, and McGill gives up a lot of runs. You know what? I'm just going to take the over. We're going to take the over of 8 here because I see some 8s out there. We're going to leave Houston alone. We're not going to touch that. We'll take the over, root for one of these pitchers to give up a bunch of runs, and move on to the next game. Next up, we got Washington and Tampa. Washington's lost 4, Tampa's won 1. Irving 5-6 with a 3.13 up against Savali, 2-5 with a 5.2. Nerfy is pretty high, 67.6 over what they've done. You see the Washington Nerfy when they're on the road. They've hit the road Nerfy 88.9% of the time. That's crazy. We're the end of June. The number shouldn't be that high. Anyways, let's look at the pitchers, see if we might take a Nerfy. Odds. Tampa Bay is pretty moderately favored at home. We got 7.5s across the board. Looking at the bats, we see that they're both trending down a little bit. 4.3 versus 5.3 in the runs, advantage Tampa. 198 for Washington, 258 for Tampa. So we have an advantage Tampa in the batting average as well, and 6.7 versus 8 on strikeouts. Looking at the pitching, we see Savali's going out there. He has not faced Washington, but he is prone to give us runs. That's a fact. He's going to give up at least one. You can guarantee that. We just hope it's not in the first inning. So, and the way Washington's batting, I don't know if he would anyways. You can see Irving over here, 3.13 with a 109. Has not faced Tampa. He gives up, he had a couple gems out there, but outside of that, he's prone for a run or two himself. The way the bats are going, they're trending down. We have the odds. It's not 7.5 is low when you got 2 pitchers that give up couple runs a game. I can't take Tampa on the money line. I don't really trust that. So yeah, we're gonna have fun with this one. We're gonna take that Nerfy. We're going to root for 6 quick outs and move on to the next game. Next up, we got Oakland and Arizona. Oakland won their last one. Arizona's lost 3. Harris 1-1 with a 2.72 up against Gollin, 5-4, 3-2, coming back from injury. His first start in about a month, I believe. Nerfy 46.2. We're going to pass on that because of the pitching. Looking at the odds, we see Arizona is a minus 200 across the board. They really want you to back a pitcher who hasn't pitched in a month. Interesting. Who's on a 3-game losing streak for a team? 8.5 are your totals across the board. Bats, Oakland, 5.3 runs their last 3 for 8th. 288 average for 8th also, so they're top 8 when it comes to batting. Arizona, only 4.3 for 13th. They're batting 204 for 23rd. So we have Oakland uptrending and more of an advantage when it comes to offense, and they're not even striking out that much. 17th in their last 3. That's pretty good, even though they did strike out 15 times yesterday. Hey, you win the game, who cares, right? So looking at pitching, Hogan's going out there, 2.72 with a 1.13, has not faced Arizona, but you can see his numbers are not bad. They've won some of the games. He doesn't get that much run support, but you can see if these are your numbers, this is a good pitcher. I wouldn't mind having him on my staff if I was running a team. These are good numbers. His opponent, Gollin, you can see his last game was May 30th. Tomorrow's June 30th. So we'll basically say it's been 30 days since he pitched. And you can see he threw 6 total pitches against the Mets before he came out. Before that, 3-3-2. He was giving up a couple runs. So let's look at these stats compared to Hogan's stats. I would say Hogan's better overall. That's just why I'm going to throw that out there. I think he's better. He's been pitching. He's more consistent. Gone over here, hasn't pitched a month. His first game back, we don't know what we're going to get out of him. He's almost like a new pitcher. And what we do right now, we fade new pitchers. The bats are favoring Oakland. Arizona's on a losing streak. The odds are 200. Got to do it. I'm going to take Oakland plus money on a money line today. I just got to do it. I'm going to do it. We got, 175 out there. Yeah, if they're on the board, if they're on this screen offshore, which is where I do a lot of my shopping, they can be higher than this. So I see a lot of high totals. So we're taking Oakland plus money and move on to the next one. All right, next up, Texas and Baltimore. Rangers on a 5-game losing streak. Baltimore 3-game winning streak. Lorenzen 4-3 with a 304 up against Povich 0-2 with a 415. Murphy 38.5. The Yerfie's orange for once. So we can look at that, see what we got going on. Looking at the odds, we see that Baltimore is a pretty decent favorite at home. Makes sense because of the streaks, at least 9.5 across the board for the totals. Looking at the bats, again, Texas has been chilly. It's so cold in Texas, it might start snowing there soon. 2.7 runs for 24th in the last 3, 241 for 14th for batting average. Not good numbers. Baltimore 5.7 for 6, meanwhile batting 295. So we have pretty moderate advantages for Baltimore across the board when it comes to batting. Looking at the pitching, Povich going out there has only pitched 4 games this season, and he had a rough one, a gem against Atlanta, I would say a gem against New York, and only 3 against Cleveland. Those are good numbers. I'm not complaining. Now he gets to face Texas, who is pretty cold. Yeah, 24th and 14th, 241. That doesn't scare me at all. Going back to his counterpart, Lorenzen, 304 with a 116. Is facing Baltimore, has not faced them. He gives up a couple runs here and there. He had a gem against Miami, but it's Miami. Come on. Is that really a good game or not? So we see, it sounds crazy, but I give Povich the advantage. Dude, outside of his 1 game against Toronto, he's been balling out. So based on these and everything, I'm playing a lot of games today. I only passed on 2 so far. Wow. Oh, look at that. Action on Saturday. Gotta love that. I am going to take Baltimore money line for sure. Ooh, yeah, it's going to be 1 unit to win like half a unit, but guess what? Profit's profit. That's what we'll do because I'm not giving out picks. I'm giving out info. I'm going to take it. You ain't got to do nothing. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the money line here. Oh, do I want to take the run line too? I think I might. Yep. No. We're going to be semi-cautious. We're just going to take the money line. 150 is out there. We'll take that and move on to the next game. Next up, Dodgers and Giants. Dodgers lost 1, Giants won 1. Glass now 8-5 with a 288 up against Howard 1-1 with a 380. Murphy's red. Might look at it with these pitchers. Odds, we see that Dodgers are minus 230 about 230 out there across the board. Totals are 7.5 out there. Bats we see are pretty similar. 3.7 versus 4, no advantage. 206, 202, no advantage. 9.7, no advantage. So to me, offenses are both they're lower middle end, and they are they're there. That's just like they're not even mid. They're just So that's the offenses right now. So pitching, you can see Eric Miller going out there. It is a bullpen game for them. Lots of he's going to pitch. Apparently, Duke loves pitching against the Cubs of all teams. Look at that. 5 straight games against the Cubs. Now he gets to face the Dodgers. So we can see here, yeah, his last pitch, it was 2 days ago. So it's a bullpen game. Let's be honest, is what it is. Glass now is going out there. I mean, seeing that odd now makes complete sense based on the fact that San Fran's doing a bullpen game and we got Glass now on the other side. Yeah. All right. That makes total sense. So you got all these. He hasn't faced San Fran, but dude hasn't been as good as everybody thinks he is. I mean, yeah, he's given up a couple here and there, but he got a little rocked against the Yankees, bounced back against KC, sure, and the Angels, sure. So the only thing, I mean, if you want to look at K props, 10-9, 12-9, sure, go for it. I can't do that. And I don't know if I trust the Dodgers offense, to be honest. I know because Glasnow gives up runs. It's not a bullpen game, but he gives up runs. Something inside me is telling me to leave this game alone because something's Dodgers and high numbers scare me. I think it's because of the whole Philly Brave thing from 2 days ago, but I'm a little freaked out now, just a little bit. So I'm gonna leave this game alone. I'm gonna pass on it totally. Yeah, if the Dodgers win, cool, good job. We'll talk about them tomorrow. So I'm gonna pass on it and move on to the next game. Next up, Detroit and the Angels. Detroit's lost 3. Angels on a 5-game winning streak. Look at them go. Olsen 2-8 with a 3.35 against Canning, 3-8 with a 4.72. Nerfy 52. We'll look at the picture, see if it's worth talking about. Odds. Detroit on a losing streak is favored on the road. 8.5 and 8 on the totals. Bats. The team that is 30th is favored in this one. 1.3 runs a game the last 3 for 30th. 115 batting average as a team in your last 3 games is almost unfathomable. Like, how are you that bad? That might be, the Cubs were the worst this year, I think at 120. This is the lowest I've seen. I might have seen, I can't remember. I might have seen a double digit, not just a triple. So that's bad. That's season bad. Angels, they're getting 5 runs a game for 11th, 263 per 10th in the last 3. Clearly, Angels had the advantage. The trend's slowly steady and going up. Detroit is dug a hole for their grave. That's where they belong right now because they're just, the offense is dead. So looking at pitching, Olsen, see if he can help them any. 3.35 of the 1.99. I mean, a 1.19. You can see has not faced the Angels, but he gives up runs. He got 12 and 8 against Milwaukee. I see him telling you, Milwaukee is the team that is always doing this. There's like 4 or 5 pitchers out there. It's Milwaukee. 10 hits and only 4 against Washington. Washington should have more than 4 runs if you got 10 hits. You had a gem against Atlanta, but we know Atlanta's offense is pretty cold right now. 4-2 against the White Sox. See, dude's not that good. Let's be honest. The stats are there. 6-5 against Boston. Canning, on the other hand, he gives up runs too. So he hasn't faced Detroit either. So we got pitchers that give up runs. We have odds of 8 out there. Okay. We have bats where one bat is ice cold. Angels are doing pretty good. Both pitchers give up runs. I think in this one, and we have Angels money line underdog. Yeah, okay, we're taking the Angels money line for sure, plus money because they're on a streak. Detroit can't score unless they do a massive breakout. And if Vegas knows when they're going to break out, then we're going to start questioning things. And I'm going to take over 8. So Angels money line, over 8, next game. All right, next up, Minnesota and Seattle. Minnesota lost 1. Seattle won 2 in a row, obviously won last night. Lopez, 7-6 with a 5.11, up against Miller, 66 with a 3.9, 57.5 Nerfy. We will look at the pitchers, see if that matters. But first, the odds. Minnesota slightly favored on the road, 7.5s across the board. Looking at the bats, Minnesota still doing good. They're still 7.7 runs their last 3, even though they only got 2 yesterday. I said the hottest offense versus a pitcher. If Seattle shuts me down, congratulations, you took a unit from me. Well, congratulations, you took a unit from me. So, hey, it happens. You can't win them all. Minnesota still batting 300 for 5th in their last 3 with only 6 strikeouts. Seattle, 3.7 for 20th, 167 batting for 28th, and 12.3 strikeouts because that's what Seattle does. There's just a hidden K in their name because that's what they're good at. 30th in their last 3 for 12.3. So again, Minnesota still has all the advantages because that trend drop is for 1 game. I don't know if that's the thing. We'll see if it stays that way. Looking at the pitching, we see Miller's going out there. He has not faced Minnesota, but he has been rocked by a couple teams this year. He had a gem against the White Sox, but it's the White Sox. Come on. And he did all right in the rest of them, but the Yankees roughed him up. KC's roughed them up. Miami's rough. You let Miami rough you up. Miami is one of the bottom 3 offenses right now, and this is factoring in their game against them last week. So not good. Lopez, he also gives up runs. He has also been roughed up, but he has not faced Seattle. But 7, 6, 7, 5. Yeah, he pitched a gem for 14 Ks against Oakland, but we see how bad Oakland's. Yeah, it's Oakland. Let's be honest. We don't want to say bad things about them. So we like them, but we don't talk about them. So overall, we got 2 pitchers that give up a lot of runs, the potential to. We have one team that's on still pretty hot and one team that's miserably cold when it comes to their offense. 7.5 is the number, though. To me, I think Minnesota could hit this by himself. Just say it. Just throw it out there a little bit. I think Seattle gets a couple runs because of how bad Lopez is. So to me, I'm taking over 7.5 as a nightcap. Sit back, watch the super high scoring game and pass out. And that's it for the day. That's it. All 15 games broken down for this Saturday on June 29th in baseball. You can see all the games here. Let's do a quick recap for the ones that like recaps. Colorado White Sox. We're going to rock with the Nerfy and the under of 9. Cincy and St. Louis, I'm going with the under of 8.5 at minus like 120, 124ish. Yankees, Toronto's a pass. Miami, Philly's a pass. Pitt, Atlanta, I have Skeens K up here, but now it's a pass. So it's 3 straight passes. San Diego, Boston, we're taking the Padres money line. I got about, you can get about 130 at some of the books. Cleveland, KC, we're going KC money line. I basically pick them. Cubs, Brewers, under 9. Houston, Mets, over 8. Washington, Tampa, all we're taking is the Nerfy in this one. Oakland, Arizona. Oakland, heavy money line dog. Big dog today. Plus 175. I'm taking it. Don't care. Texas, Baltimore money line. Pretty heavy favorite to kind of counteract those two. They balance out. Dodgers, San Fran's a pass. Detroit, LA, we got a twofer. We got Angels money line plus money and over 8, almost a pick 'em. And Minnesota, Seattle over 7.5 at plus money. There's one thing you know about my plays here you can see is most of them are plus plays. That's what I'd like to do. I'm not giving out all these straight 300 on every single play. Yeah, there's occasional like a Baltimore 152, or a couple days ago I took Philly and the Braves minus 300 each. We ain't doing that again. So, because I think profit's profit, and that was just a joke. So to me, I want to hit. And the way I do things, I know some people ask this too. I do the video, I record this because when I'm telling you what I'm taking, I'm thinking of it when I'm taking it. When I end the video, I go search all my books, because if you're using one book, you're doing it wrong. I have about 15 books. So I live in Florida. I have one option. So everything else has to be elsewhere, if you know what I'm saying. If you're picking up what I'm putting down here. So those are my plays. If you like what you saw, drop a comment. Let me know what you're taking today. And if you haven't, drop a like, share. That's a thing. Share it. And subscribe so we can keep on growing, because I appreciate you, because you be doing what you do is what helped me do what I do. And we're all about help me help you. We're trying to win together here. So let's do that. Let's have a Saturday. See you tomorrow.